It's about a young man called Stefan. And Stefan was not very clever, not very good at anything. He made a living by doing odd jobs around the village. If there was a hole in the road, he'd get the job of filling up the hole. If a tree fell down, Stefan would chop the tree up and sell the firewood, something like that. He he helped out at harvest time and whenever there was any farm work to do. So he just made a living doing odds and ends, and people made a bit of fun of him, really. He was, the village idiot in some ways, which you had in those days, but not allowed to say that now, I suppose. But there was one thing that Stefan was good at, and that was having children, or making children. Stefan and his wife had a big family, one every year for year after year. And he got by because in their community, godfathers, godparents, were very active and played a major role in looking after the children. And Stefan was very good at finding godparents who would really look after his children. But there's obviously a limit. And so in most families, when a new baby's on the way, people are very pleased. But when Stefan's wife announced that she was expecting another one, he was very worried because he couldn't think of anybody else he could ask to be a godfather. And this really worried him. And one day he, walking down the road, deep in thought, trying to think of someone else he could ask, when he came face to face with a stranger, nearly bumped into each other, literally. And the stranger said to Stefan, "You seem to be miles away there. You must have something on your mind. What are you worrying about?" And Stefan told him. And this man said, "Well, I've never been a godparent. I'd like to be godparent to your new baby." And it was only at that point that Stefan stopped and really looked at who this was he was talking to. He'd been so busy just sort of taking into his mind that there was someone there. And the person that he nearly bumped into, the person he was agreeing would be the godparent to his new child, was actually Mr. Death. And then Stefan thought, well, can I have Mr. Death as godparent to my child? And I thought, well, why not? Death is quite a fair person. He doesn't take sides. He treats everyone fairly. He doesn't favour the rich over the poor or take one person and not another person. And he agreed that Mr. Death would be the godparent to Stefan's new baby when it arrived. Which, after a while, it did. And they had the christening and a big party afterwards, which Mr. Death paid for. And during the course of this party, Stefan and Mr. Death got on really well. They discovered they had a lot in common. They both liked really stupid jokes. And they both liked really good beer. And so they spent an awful lot of the time at that party telling jokes and drinking beer. And towards the end of it, they were sat in a corner with their elbows on the table and their heads together, hatching some scheme. And a week or two later, the scheme came into operation, because outside Stefan's little shack, a notice appeared. It said, "Dr. Stefan, all ailments cured." And everyone thought that was hilarious. Who on earth would go and see Stefan if he were ill? Nobody. No one in their right mind. And they didn't. But, living just outside the village, there was a woman who had a child, a little girl, who'd never thrived. She'd never done really well. She wasn't actually ill, but she wasn't actually well either. She was sort of weak and skinny and just not quite fit. And this woman had tried everywhere. She tried every cure she could think of. She'd been to every healer she could find. And no one had been able to help her little girl grow up really well. And so, in desperation, she took her to see Stefan. And Stefan did what he'd agreed with Mr. Death. He laid the girl down on the bed and did the kind of examination that children do when they're playing doctors and nurses. Put your tongue out, open your mouth, say ah, all this sort of thing. Which was just playing for time until Death appeared. And the agreement was that if Mr. Death, who was going to be only visible to Stefan, if he appeared at the head of the bed, the patient was going to be all right, whatever Stefan did to them, because they weren't due for Mr. Death to take them away yet. And so Stefan could give them some kind of quack medicine and claim the cure. But if Mr. Death had appeared at the foot of the bed, then that person was going to die, whatever Stefan did. And he'd have to make some excuse. Say, oh, you should have come 2 days ago, then I might have been able to cure them, or something like that. But this time, luckily for Stefan, Mr. Death appeared at the head of the bed, and Stefan said, oh, I could cure that child, yes, I could. If you took out some little bottles of medicine that he'd prepared before, coloured water, really. Now, said to the mother, give her this one every morning as soon as she wakes up, bright red liquid. It doesn't taste very nice, but it'll do her good. And then you give her this one, green one, give her that before meals, and I'll guarantee that she'll get better. And she did. Don't know whether it was placebo effect, or whether it was just some other kind of psychological thing, or whether she would have just got better anyway, but she did. She began to put on weight and be more active and run around, and Stefan was able to claim that he cured this woman, this girl rather, that no one else could cure. And so 1 or 2 other people came to see Stefan. And as luck would have it, Mr. Death always appeared at the head of the bed, so Stefan could claim the cure. And his reputation spread. And on just the odd occasion when Mr. Death did appear at the foot of the bed, then he was able to make an excuse, and no one took much notice of it. And so Stefan's reputation grew, until one morning, before he was up, there was a big hammering on the door. When he opened the door, there were a couple of very posh-looking people in livery, servants, and they said, the king is desperately ill, no one can cure him, but they've heard of you, Stefan, you must come and cure the king. So Stefan thought, this is my opportunity, this is where I make my fortune forever. And so he struck a hard bargain. Yes, I will come and cure the king, but I want carriage and horses to take me there. I want all the apples on my apple tree to be replaced with little bags of gold. And I want my well to be filled with red wine, so that all the people from the village can come and help themselves and have as much wine as they want. And so this was quickly made right, and Stefan went off to cure the king. Taken into the palace, the king was laying on the bed, looking as though he was almost dead already, very pale, very skinny, very thin. Stefan did his usual little examination, did the usual things, and Mr. Death appeared at the foot of the bed. Oh no, thought Stefan, sod's law, by one big chance, and Mr. Death wants to take him. I can't cure him. What shall I do about this? Inspiration struck. Turn the bed, said Stefan, and the servants picked up the bed and turned it round. So by now Mr. Death was standing at the head of the bed, and the colour come back into the king's cheeks, and he started to sit up. But then Mr. Death walked round to the other side of the bed again, and the king laid back down. Turn the bed again, said Stefan. And this went on for the next 5 minutes. Stefan had the bed turned round, and the bed turned round, the bed turned round, and Mr. Death kept on going round to one end and then the other end. And it was a matter of who got fed up first. And it was Mr. Death. He said, oh, well, if you really want him that desperately, you can cure the king. And Mr. Death disappeared. And Stefan cured the king. For a little while, at least. And so he was rich and famous, and he didn't need to do any more doctoring, medicining. And so a while after that, probably quite a while after that, he was walking down that same road again. But this time, in the middle of a storm. Wind was howling, the rain was pouring down, and he was walking along with his head down into the wind. And he couldn't bear it any longer, and he found a little cave by the side of the road, so he went into the cave to shelter from the rain. And he explored the cave a bit, when he was waiting for the rain to stop. He reached around, and there was a passageway at the end of it, and I wonder where that leads, thought Stefan. And he went down this passage, down and round corners, down under the ground, and suddenly came out in a huge, great big cavern, almost like a cathedral, blaring with light, candles everywhere, all kind of different shapes and sizes, big thick candles, little thin ones, all light, smoke going up near the ceiling. And sat in the middle of all this was his friend Mr. Death. And he's turned, "Oh, Stephen, I didn't expect to see you down here today." And, "Where are we?" asked Stephen. "Well, this is my kingdom, this is where I work. And all those candles, each candle represents one person up there in your world. And obviously those with big tall candles, they've got a great long life ahead of them. The ones that are little, then, you know, their days are numbered perhaps, and there's one or two little ones that are just guttering out. They're going to go any minute now." Stephen was quite interested in this, and he said, "Which one's mine?" "That one over there," said Mr. Death. When Stephen looked, there were two candles. One was quite tall, and one was very small. "You mean that big tall one over there?" said Stephen. "No, the little one next door to it, that's yours." "Oh dear," thought Stephen. "Not really worth you going now," said Mr. Death. "By the time you get back to the surface and off to your house, I'd have to come running after you. So what I suggest we do, I've got some nice beer down there, and I suggest we stay here and we have a couple of glasses of beer, and I'll tell you some more jokes, and then I won't need to go chasing after you to bring you back." So that was Stephen's last days, drinking beer and swapping jokes with Godfather Death. That's the end of that one.